I am Joe Paquette. I'm representing the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, and I'd like to thank you for attending this evening. The North Hennepin Area Chamber and the League of Women Voters of Brooklyn Park, Osseo, and Maple Grove are co-sponsoring this candidate forum to encourage voter interest on the upcoming election on November 4th. Neither organization endorses candidates. We would like to thank the City of Brooklyn Center for use of their facility for this forum and Northwest Community Television for their support in televising this event live and for their scheduling of cablecast replays. It's now my pleasure to introduce the President of the League of Women Voters, Eleanor Johnson. Please welcome Eleanor.
Thank you. I am a member of the Maple Grove, Brooklyn Park, Osseo, and Brooklyn Center League of Women Voters, and I welcome you here. Candidate forums are an excellent way for the community to get involved and to get to know the individual candidates running for office. It also provides an open venue to allow individuals to ask candidates questions that are important to you. Our moderator will be happy to ask your questions if they are legible and they meet the following criteria. The question has not already been asked, and it is not a personal attack on one of the candidates. If you would like to submit a question, raise your hand and a card will be provided to you along with a pen, and you can write your question, raise your hand again, and someone will pick it up. Please submit your questions early so that the moderator will be sure to have time to ask your question. Now I'd like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Kirsten Chomey, who is a member of the Brooklyn Park, Osseo, Maple Grove League of Women Voters. Kirsten.
Thank you very much. On behalf of the League of Women Voters, I'd like to welcome you to the Candidates Forum this evening. League of Women Voters is an organization that is nonpartisan and volunteer-based. It is organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to participate in government. While LWV members do study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse nor support political parties or candidates. The LWV does encourage its members as individuals, as we encourage each of you, to get involved in your community of your choice. However, the views expressed in this forum are those of the individual candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. By sponsoring this forum this evening, the League provides an opportunity for citizen participation and exposure to candidates, but does not provide an endorsement of any candidate or candidates. All viable candidates have been invited to participate this evening. Our first forum, again, is for the City of Brooklyn Center City Council. I believe both mayoral candidates, one is in DC with the president. I guess we'll excuse that. And the other one was not able to be here this evening, and I don't even know their names right now. I apologize. So for this evening, we have Randy Christensen. April Graves was not able to be here this evening. We have Dan Ryan. And then we have Ned Storla, who is also not able to be here this evening. So we're going to have a nice conversation with these two gentlemen right here. In tonight's forum, the candidates will start out with 5 of the 6 questions they received in advance, in which you have 1 minute to respond. Then our candidates will have up to 30 seconds to respond to each of the questions coming from the audience. Finally, they will be given 1 minute for their final question, which is your final statements. Candidates, the League would like to request you refrain from making any personal attacks on your fellow candidates. I'd like to take this moment to point out my timekeeper for this evening. She's sitting right there in the front row. She will show you when you have 15 seconds to finish your statement, and then she will show you when your time has expired. Please finish your sentence at that time, as I will be directing the next speaker's turn. Audience, please remember to turn off all communication devices or make them silent at this time, and there will be no photography for the duration of the forum. So let's get started with that first question that you had. What knowledge, experience, or attributes do you possess that make you the best person for the position that you are pursuing? Our first responder will be Mr. Randy Christensen.
Hi, I'm Randy Christensen, and the knowledge I bring is from the 21 years of work that I have in property management, as well as my experience here that I've gotten in the Planning Commission. I have a good sense of what communities should be doing, working with different communities inside associations. Being a smaller community, we have the same issues, except on a smaller scale. They become more personal, so it's going to be a little bit of a different challenge to work through that and in a large scale to be able to make this work.
Thank you. And Mr. Dan Ryan.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Dan Ryan. I currently serve on the Brooklyn Center City Council. My work experience, education, and 8 years on the council make me well qualified to serve another term on the Brooklyn Center City Council. I've lived in Brooklyn Center most of my life. I grew up here, graduating from Brooklyn Center High School. My personal history reflects the growth of the city from the 1950s to today. Brooklyn Center is a city. Given my experience as a blue-collar worker and in middle management, I understand the struggles of the people I represent. I earned a degree in political science from the University of Minnesota and worked as an intern with the Minneapolis Housing and Redevelopment Authority. With 8 years of experience on the City Council, I have more experience than any other serving member, with the exception of Mayor Wilson. I place great emphasis on service. I make certain that I respond to every citizen complaint. I am accessible to everyone by mail, email, or by phone. When reelected, I will continue to work tirelessly to serve all of the citizens of Brooklyn Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question. What are the most critical issues facing the City of Brooklyn Center over the next several years, and what policies will you support or initiate if elected to address these challenges? Our first responder this time will be Mr. Ryan.
Thank you. The critical issues are maintaining the neighborhoods, building our commercial tax base, and public safety. To ensure our future, the neighborhoods must be safe and attractive. That's why I support vigorous code enforcement and home ownership through the city's sales incentive and remodeling programs. Our Renew program sold 120 foreclosed properties as owner-occupied homes. The NSP remodel program has reconditioned 32 houses that were once some of the worst properties into some of the nicest ones in the neighborhood. Building our tax base is necessary for financial viability, keeping services affordable for our residents. Projects like the FBI headquarters, Shingle Creek Crossing, and the re-imaging of public spaces like Bass Lake Road will add momentum for our future redevelopment and encourage new businesses to locate here. Crime is lower now than it's been in 20 years, but keeping crime lower requires continued resolve. Improved public safety can be ensured by giving the police sufficient resources through support of Neighborhood Watch and our department's community policing model.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen.
Having served on the Planning Commission, I would see that being able to redevelop the lands that either are undesirable or have been taken over by the city is one of the most critical issues, to make sure that we continue to make good uses and reuse of those places. One of the other big challenges is our reputation with regards to public safety. And I think over the last several years, everyone has done a great job in doing that. I think National Night Out has been a tremendous program that Brooklyn Park started with, making it huge. Brooklyn Center, having gone around to many of them this year, was a fantastic time. And I think those are the things, building the community support and making sure that the redevelopment continues. We have plenty of good businesses, and we need to figure out how to get more of them into our community.
Thank you. Our next question. What will you do to ensure that the community's diverse citizens' voices are heard? Our first responder will be Mr. Christensen.
I guess as it goes, being accessible, making sure that we have the availability of not just myself, but having staff, being able to respond to residents, making sure that we have as many community meetings like we've had so far with the park meetings. We've had a good opportunity to get out into the community, have everybody come into the parks, listen to what's going on with our city, get involved with what is going on in our city, and it gives the opportunity for everybody to be able to talk to people at a real point, at a more relaxed point, rather than just having them come to or email the residents or the staff here or us as city council. So I would like to continue those opportunities and be available as well by phone, email, as it is currently.
Mr. Ryan?
At every opportunity, I go to events like the Hmong New Year's and Cinco de Mayo celebrations. I attend the Minority Action Coalition meetings. MAC is a forum where all community leaders meet monthly to get information on how the police engage with citizens and work with all of the diverse communities in Brooklyn Center. I attend these meetings so I can hear what people have to say, to listen to their complaints or concerns. It helps to open lines of communication and to build relationships. Every year I attend each one of our 4 neighborhood meetings in the parks. It affords the opportunity for face-to-face contact between representatives of the city and all segments of the community. The council also has a couple of new initiatives. One is the Brooklyn Center University, which will provide citizens the opportunity to learn how the city operates by presentations given by our senior staff. Also, we are conducting a major diversity initiative so that our staff more fully reflects the diversity of our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question. With the completion of Highway 610, what would you do to alleviate congestion created on Highway 252 as a result? The first responder is Mr. Christensen.
We were just talking about this at the Planning Commission level, so it is something that I'm a little bit familiar with. There is a large plan and a study that's been done, and we are continuing to work with Brooklyn Park as well as Brooklyn Center to figure out how we're going to create or do something with that congestion. I don't think we all have the answer as of yet, but working with the staff and the study, I think we can get some great opportunities along that corridor to either redirect or create a way to alleviate a little bit of that, but I don't have the answer as of yet.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan?
Let's be clear. Improving Minnesota Highway 252 is a state responsibility. 252 is a key section of the Metro freeway system that carries much more traffic than it was designed to accommodate. Completion of Highway 610 only made that congestion worse. What is needed is upgrading of Minnesota 252 to a full limited access freeway. That is estimated to cost $120 million, well beyond the city's resources. MnDOT's primary goal is improving north-south traffic flow on the highway. That's why it's important that Brooklyn Center is conducting its own study on what improvements should be made to a future design and for a future design for greater safety to accommodate improved access to the Riverwood neighborhood east of 252. I continually lobbied the legislature and our representatives in Congress to fund a full upgrade for 252. The only real solution is that state and federal funds be made available for a complete improvement of the roadway.
Thank you. Our final 1-minute question and reminder to the audience to please get your questions in so that we can get them asked tonight. Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park created the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth to encourage and support their positive development. Will you support this initiative or would you move in a new direction? First responder is Mr. Christensen.
Well, in reading about the program, I know that they've made great strides in trying to create and get funding to be able to study it and implement a few different programs. I think so far they've had good success meeting with the community and meeting with different leaders to make that happen. I have not been able to talk with another person to figure out exactly what end goal they have with regards to incorporating that in to continue with the different scholarship opportunities that they have. But I'm hoping that when I learn a little bit more about that, being new in this whole game, I'm working to learn more about all of the different pieces of the city and hope to get involved with that one as well.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan?
Yes, I support the Brooklyn Bridge Alliance for Youth. Our future success is dependent upon the success of our youth. The purpose of the Alliance is to cooperatively support positive youth development by providing summer and after-school opportunities for all youth in our 2 cities. Although the Alliance will have access to high-quality programs outside the classroom, this will help them, our young people, to avoid high-risk behaviors and to build a productive future. The next generation will need a full set of skills for the living wage, in order to have living wage jobs in the future. 2 critical outcomes that are often mentioned are the need to improve high school graduation rates and prepare students for college or post-secondary training. The key outcomes for the Alliance are that youth will master essential life skills such as problem solving, effective communication, and decision making, and personal responsibility, thus laying the groundwork for success in the education experience that will be needed to prepare for those 21st century jobs. Thank you.
All right, moving on to our 30-second answers. First question is, would you support limiting trash collectors in the city to no more than 2 haulers? Why or why not? Question comes up every year. Our first responder will be Mr. Ryan.
Well, that's a question that has become a repeat item before the council. The assumption is that by limiting trash haulers, we can limit the wear and tear on our streets. Also, there's a public safety issue involved. There was a tragedy about 2 years ago where a child was killed by a trash hauler. But we have seen data that doesn't really support, that have a serious impact on our streets. The other aspect is that I don't support limiting it to 2 trash haulers at this time because there are various advantages for customers by utilizing competitive bids from many more private haulers than just 2.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen?
At this point, I'm going to say no. The streets are well designed. They're intended to have the load that they have. The wear and tear doesn't create any extra on there. And I would support more of the opportunity to have different haulers, giving more competition and giving us the opportunity to have a lower price, rather than some cities and other places that have gone to a reduced number or a single hauler system.
Thank you. Our next question. Would you support homeowners raising chickens, not roosters, with appropriate limitations and written approval by local neighbors? Why or why not? Our first responder will be Mr. Christensen.
I agree that we should not have roosters. The chicken question, coming from an association background, they don't allow any of that. Being different homeowners, and we have a lot of variety here on the Planning Commission, looking at all the different directions and all the different size lots. It's hard to look at all of these different ordinances and make one cookie cutter thing. And I think there's some opportunity for that in certain instances.
Mr. Ryan?
I'm opposed to allowing backyard chickens being raised in Brooklyn Center. Brooklyn Center is an urban community, and that's obviously an agricultural use. There are certain individuals in the city who approached me saying we should allow raising chickens in backyards. Even though there are allegedly certain breeds that would not have some of the adverse effects of the typical barnyard chicken, I think that many of our residents wouldn't be able to distinguish the difference in the breeds, and it would only create problems, nuisances, and public health issues.
Thank you. Our next question. What is your plan to assist seniors in our city? First responder is Mr. Ryan.
Thank you. Being out in the community this year, I've encountered a number of seniors in their homes where I had concerns that these elderly people would be unable to meet their own day-to-day needs and be capable of taking care of themselves because of their advanced age and disability. I understand there are numerous programs already available through the county, and so I've tasked staff with, when making observations of such individuals, to make contact with the county so that those programs could be properly engaged. There's no need for the city to recreate the wheel and to duplicate what the county's already doing.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen.
Being that I have a father who lives 4 blocks from me and he's reaching an age of 78, this is something that's on my mind anyway. Working in the community that I work in with different townhome associations, it's another concern, and it's something I deal with a lot. There are plenty of programs. There are things that, as Dan said, we don't need to recreate the wheel on several different things. I think that creating a few more opportunities, which is something we've looked at the Planning Commission level, to see where there's some opportunity sites to create different places to be able to have a community like that are very important and should be done.
Thank you. How will you, as one person on the City Council, make a difference in our community? First responder is Mr. Ryan.
First of all, we have an obligation to represent fully and faithfully the interests of all of our citizens. I mentioned earlier in one of my responses my concern for the growing diversity in our community. That means developing the cultural agility to recognize the values and differences within our various communities, and to fairly and fully represent all of our citizens by bringing to the table a fair and full understanding of the problems that we face, and to be able to communicate those issues to our residents and to build consensus around the initiatives that I feel must be pursued. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen?
In my neighborhood, it is from house to house to house very diverse. And it's fun to participate with my neighbors and the different activities that they do, the different celebrations that they do, and moving forward, understanding those and making sure that the city staff understand how that works is very important, as well as trying to draft ordinances to make that happen. As one person on the council, I do agree getting out and making sure that we are meeting with and taking care of each of the different individual diversities of our community is a good thing to do.
Thank you. Our next question, do you support the current growth plan for the Brookdale area? Why or why not? First responder is Mr. Christensen.
Thank you for bringing that one up as a frustration point for me on the City Planning Commission. I do support most of the direction that it's going. I think there can be some very big opportunities to get that taken care of in a different way and make sure that we've got all that we can do to make that the gem of our city as it was before, a destination for our city that it should be, and make sure that we get the groups of people and stores that need to be there to make it a destination as it used to be.
Thank you. Mr. Ryan?
The development of Shingle Creek Crossing, I think, has gone remarkably well, especially considering that it was undertaken when the economy was very poor. The nature of our community has changed significantly since Brookdale and the era when Brookdale flourished. Again, we should be open to bringing in a broader range of retail that would make Shingle Creek Crossing as much of a destination as it was in the past by attracting those retail shoppers. But again, it'll take a different retail mix than we had in the past. Also, I'm optimistic about there being a broader range of restaurants located there, which will also enhance it as a destination.
Thank you. What is your observation of our city parks? Do you think they need improvement? Why or why not? Mr. Christensen.
I think many of them are in great shape. There's a few of them that have some outdated stuff or have missing stuff. There's an opportunity there to make sure that we continue to change with the community to make sure that the things that people want at that park and the places that we want to go in that park are reflective of what the change in the community is. A dog park type park would be a great thing, I think, in some area. Where, I'm not sure, but that's what we should look into.
Mr. Ryan?
We have 535 acres of great parks, but again, we have to repurpose some of the use to reflect the needs and expectations of our citizens. One example is that we have repurposed an old baseball field that was not being used and constructed a soccer field. I think in the future, we'll be looking at additional soccer fields and the infrastructure to support quality soccer fields. There are some other incidental items that could be added to our parks. Frisbee golf was one that was suggested to me. But again, to always be ready to shift some uses in our parks to reflect the needs and expectations of our residents.
Thank you. What is your understanding of the Metropolitan Council? Do you believe that they should be allowed to mandate or to local government? Why or why not? First responder is Mr. Ryan.
Very large question for 30 seconds, but the Met Council's role is both planning and to provide wastewater treatment. Those are the two really major components of its role, but also getting back to 252, the Met Council has some responsibilities for planning and the direction of federal funds toward regional highway projects. As far as the Met Council's authority to dictate to cities, that's a difficult balance between the need for region-wide planning and the essential need for local control.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen?
The initial use of what the Met Council was intended to be is a very difficult thing, as it was intended to be a small scope to be able to help connect the cities, to make sure that the roads and the utilities didn't end up this far apart when they should be together. It's created itself and made itself into a larger opportunity to be something that it shouldn't be, in my opinion. And I believe that it's taking and putting too much pressure on the local governments to be able to do what they need to do. So I think that that's a little beyond the scope of what they should be doing.
Thank you. How will this time commitment fit into your busy schedule? Mr. Christensen?
It's a difficult thing to do. As a property manager, a lot of my communities meet in the evenings as well. So it is a difficult time to judge everything and juggle everything that there is to do. But I've been doing it for 21 years already, and I think it will be something that I can take care of and make sure that I meet as many opportunities as possible. There will be opportunities that I may not be able to get to because I do have a full-time job. But I do take this job seriously as well, and will continue to make sure that it gets represented.
Mr. Ryan?
Thank you. Well, I have something of an unfair advantage over my colleagues who work day jobs. I'm retired. But I've taken it upon myself to enhance the basic duties of the work on the council. And Mayor Wilson has tasked me with serving as liaison to Metro Cities, which works with the Met Council and metropolitan issues at the state legislature, as well as liaison to the League of Minnesota Cities and National League of Cities. And these are endeavors that can take quite a bit of time and energy, a lot of research into issues, which I enjoy thoroughly and I'm fully committed to.
Thank you. What will you do to reinforce a positive police and community interactions? First responder is Mr. Ryan.
Well, we have a great police department. They consistently poll very high in approval ratings with our citizens. The reason for that is they engage something which is known as the community policing model, which is the police need and constantly seek to be fully engaged with all of our communities throughout the city. They see themselves as a service organization, not as an occupying force, as we've seen in the dysfunctional police force in Ferguson, Missouri. So I think that they've shown great proficiency in that area.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen?
Having dealt for 21 years in property management, I work well with the police as on many different levels. The community-oriented police program, specifically that Brooklyn Park has, I have seen working here in Brooklyn Center. I've worked well with them, and I think one of the things that we can continue to do is model some of the things after what Brooklyn Park is doing with that community-oriented police to change how they work with the different communities, the different diversities, and smaller communities within our community to make sure that that communication continues.
Thank you. Our next question. Would you support expanding community gardens in our parks for a very minimum fee? Why or why not? First responder is Mr. Ryan.
Yes, I would definitely support the expansion of community gardens at low cost to the subscribers. We already have, I believe, 14 plots in Centennial, the east side of Centennial Park, the other side of the creek. And there's ample space for significant addition to that community garden space. And there also is parking already at that area of Centennial Park. And I would also like to look for other areas in our parks that would be acceptable by residents for additional community gardens.
Thank you. Mr. Christensen?
This is one of the first things that came up when I was appointed to the City Planning Commission. So it's something I'm somewhat familiar with. I guess I would need to look into more of how that's functioning now as opposed to how it was designed and brought to us as an opportunity for the residents. Should there be a fee to it? Yes, I believe that shows commitment from the community to do that. If we continue with the program, I think it's a great thing. My father has had one for all of my life, and I just love going out to the garden and grabbing something and having a treat.
All right. We're going to jump into your personality a little bit before your closing comment. So here you go. Ready? What is the last book that you read, or what book are you currently reading? First responder will be Mr. Christensen.
The last book that I read was because I saw the movie a second time, and it was Angels and Demons. So that is the last book I read for fun. The most recent book I'm reading is Micaiah, which is 515B. It's a statute that handles all of the different condominiums. Sad thought, but that's the book I'm reading currently.
There you go. Mr. Ryan.
I'm currently reading the 3-volume biography of Theodore Roosevelt by Edmund Morris. It's truly a magisterial work of extraordinary depth and scholarship, and it's wonderfully written. Another book that I recently completed was The Utility of Force by Brigadier General Rupert Smith of the British Army, recently retired. It addresses issues like terrorism and counter guerrilla warfare.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our closing statements, and we're going to go in the reverse order from which we started. Closing question, in summary, how do you intend to best serve this city and move it forward? Our first responder will be Mr. Dan Ryan.
First of all, it's essential to listen carefully and respectfully to all those who have business with the council, keeping in mind that the loudest voices are not the wisest, but in supporting a fair and open process of government where all voices will be heard, all interests taken into consideration. And in knowing one's role, the job of a council member is not to be the expert, to learn from the experts by choosing the best available options for the city. I'd use my best judgment to achieve solutions to our problems that meet the test of doing the greatest good for the greatest number, and recognizing where government doesn't belong, but asserting its authority where it does. And finally, we have the responsibility of stewardship. The ultimate true test for me, and I think for all those who serve on the city council, is this: when it comes time to leave office, have I left the city in better condition than when I began my service on the city council? Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Randy Christensen.
How do I intend to serve this community? As I've served many of the communities that I manage, trying to create and listen to the different issues that they have. People don't call me when the lawn has been mowed correctly. It's usually they call me when that's not going correct. So I have listened for 21 years to those things. For the past year and a half, almost 2 years on the Planning Commission, I've listened to those open forums and listened to the community, and we've come up with different ideas sometimes that were not apparent in the first go-around. So I think working with the different leaders of the community, working with the staff to come up with sometimes things that are right in front of us that are outside of the box, and making sure that we take care of the things that need to be taken care of in our community.
Thank you. Once again, on behalf of the League of Women Voters and the North Hennepin Area Chamber of Commerce, I would like to thank the candidates for agreeing to participate in tonight's forum. I'd also like to thank the voters for attending and participating by submitting excellent questions, and I would like to thank the viewing audience as well. Remember, if we couldn't get to your question tonight, or because some of our candidates were unable to be here, like April Graves and Ned Storla and the 2 mayoral candidates, please contact them directly with your questions or concerns. Please remember to get out and vote on November 4th, as your vote truly counts. Thank you and have a good evening.